Good evening, everyone. It's Pastor Anthony here with your Daily Excellence. Thank you guys so much for being on the channel this evening, and welcome to special broadcast here Tuesday night, April 1st, or as some of you guys like to call it, April Fool's Day. But unfortunately, with the discussion we're going to get into tonight is not a fooling matter, and it's not an April Fool's. So, but yeah, Clary asks, do you have an update on Kathleen S? She was on our channel a couple of nights ago modding for us, but I don't know anything that I don't know of anything that she's got going on right away. But yeah, let's see. Anyway, first of all, let's do a mic check. Can you guys hear me? Because I was having some volume issues on my end, and I'm a little bit concerned for when NyPrepper gets on here in just a few minutes. I'm hoping that I'll be able to hear him. It seems like the volume is going out, but for whatever reason, I'm not hearing anything on my end. So if you guys can hear me, please let me know. And see what we can do there. If you guys just let me know in the chat room if you guys can hear me, that would be very helpful on your end. Thank you, Mother Butterflies, saying very good. Thank you very much. And Arkham Knight, hello, this is my first time here. I can hear you perfectly. Thank you. Giovanni says loud and clear. Judy Booth says you can hear me. All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad you guys can hear. Hey, do me a favor. Probably going to be about another 5 or 10 minutes before Greg from NyPrepper gets on here, but if you guys can do me a huge favor, like, share, subscribe, kind of let people know in the chat rooms that we're here. If you can, those things help us out tremendously. And so please do those things. Tonight we're going to get into the subject here. Is the worst case scenario unfolding right now? And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to be asking Greg over at NyPrepper quite a few questions about what he thinks is going on, because a lot has transpired since the last interview that we've done, which was last month. At the beginning of March, we talked about some of these scenarios and what would take place, and a lot has happened. A lot of escalation has take place. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and let our sponsor do their thing for just a moment. And then I will take you guys over to our X channel, and we'll go over some interviews and things like that while we wait for NyPrepper to hop on here. So give us about 60 seconds, everyone, and we'll be right back.
With over 37 models that can be used around the world, our family of EMP protection devices installs easily in minutes. Being employed this year by federal organizations and electrical companies, the EMP Shield has been tested at Keystone Compliance, a federally approved DoD testing facility. Also serving as one of the world's fastest whole home surge protection devices, working in less than 1 nanosecond, the EMP Shield will protect against electromagnetic pulses, coronal mass ejections, lightning, and all forms of power surges. Proven to withstand more than 40 EMP strikes with zero degradation, the EMP Shield is also one of the world's strongest surge protectors, capable of withstanding over 100,000 amps.
All right, so that's our sponsor there, EMP Shield. We're glad that they have allowed us to use their product here online. And so if you haven't done so and want to use EMP Shield, just go to empshield.com. Use promo code DAILY. You save $50 off of your device when you purchase one. The devices are easy to install, whether you want to do it to your house, your vehicle, your generator, anything that's electronic, you can do that. And make sure that you guys purchase one of those. It will protect your home from electromagnetic pulses, which we've been getting a lot of those from the sun in our atmosphere lately, and plasma lightning, things like that. Good device to have. The Department of Justice uses that for all of their government buildings and things. So not a bad product to pick up. And of course, it's made here in the United States, so no tariffs. Right? No tariffs on that device. All right, let's take you guys over to our channel here, and I had this all set up for you guys, and I don't know what happened, but there we go. Anyway, here we go. This is our Daily Excellence channel here over on X, and of course, you can follow us over there. And there we are. See, we're live. We got 8 of you guys watching us. Thank you guys so much for being here. And a couple shares, so thank you. All right, so here's what's going on as we're getting reports of a potential large-scale attack to begin soon on Iran. Of course, this is an unconfirmed, from what I can tell, but something worth keeping your ear to the ground. And so we're getting some reports from Israeli Channel 14 on that potential thing taking place. Also, some news coming out of Qatar. The Qatar and the UAE have joined the Israeli and United States Air Forces in military drills and exercises in Greece, conducting under the name of Indochus Warrior. And so, I don't know, it's not playing. Just a second here. I'm not sure why. There we go. It's not playing that video out. But anyway, you can see some of the aircraft and things like that are playing. But there it goes. Anyway. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that's going on there. Also, news coming from BRICS news, just in that Russia warns the United States that strikes on Iran would have catastrophic consequences. And so, of course, we're definitely starting to see Russia come in and begin to support its ally, which was something that I had brought up a couple of weeks ago. Because at the time, Russia and the United States were kind of acting a little buddy-buddy with Trump coming in and trying to make deals with the Ukraine and things like that. And I was wondering if the pressure really got turned up high enough, would Russia start to come in and support its ally in Iran? And it looks like that's exactly what's happening here. Then we have here that Iran just threatened a preemptive strike on a U.S. base following Trump's bomb threats. And so we have, of course, this is coming from End Times Headline News. And so, a lot of saber rattling going back and forth between these guys. But basically, everyone's like, if you make a move, we're going at it. Okay. Meanwhile, China had a surprise military drill today. The Chinese military has surrounded Taiwan with 19 warships and 50 jets, launching a large-scale air, sea, and land exercise. So, I posted on here that, in my opinion, China will make its move on Taiwan during the global crisis with the United States, Russia, Iran, Europe, and Middle East conflicts. And so China's starting to flex its muscle. Of course, they have their own interests, something separate from we got going on here. War Intel is also putting out relentless U.S. cargo planes are pouring into the Middle East, signaling a looming escalation And so you can kind of see some of the aircraft and things like that are now entering the Middle East area. Of course, we're building up bases. You don't build up bases. You don't start moving aircraft and carriers and things into the area unless you're getting ready to do something, right? So we have that going on. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Of course, that's us tonight. And I think that's about all. The United States has bunker busting bombers are positioned in the Indian Ocean as tensions mount with Iran. So that's more of that equipment that we have going on there. And then also, according from End Times Headline News, and all this news articles that I'm sharing with you guys are within the last 24 hours, by the way. Okay, this isn't stuff from last week. This has all been within the last 24 hours. But Iran loads missiles onto launchers after Trump delivers a threat to Tehran as tensions continue to escalate. So there's a lot going on all over the place. And let's see. I'm trying to make sure I got everything here. So I think that's everything that's happening right now. But yeah, a lot taking place around the globe. So that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to get into those conversations with NyPrepper tonight and kind of get his feed on what's taking place and where we think things are going to take place. I personally think we're getting close to the Ezekiel wars we talked about, because Russia's coming down. Everything is surrounding Israel right now. And I personally think, in my opinion, what we're starting to see, and I'm going to see what Greg has to say about this, but what we're starting to see is the convergence of theaters. You kind of have the Ukrainian and Russia theater, and then you have the Middle East and, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Israel, Turkey, that kind of theater there. But what's happening is you got alliances now starting to come together. And what was two different theaters are now starting to come together as one massive theater, it seems like, because the line's being drawn in the sand and people are taking sides, and the conflicts are beginning to come together into this one massive event over in Europe and in the Middle East. And so we talked about, I think on last week, that France began to put out literature for their people to prepare them for nuclear fallout and to begin to prepare them for a wartime scenario for their citizens over there. Of course, Russia's been doing that for over a year now, preparing their citizens for potential nuclear fallout. The United Kingdom, they've been doing the same thing with that as well. Giovanni's talking about North and South Korea. Yeah, you can't forget, Kim Jong-un up there in North Korea. And it's really easy to kind of forget that North Korea exists when we have all these conflicts going on. And he's kind of the fly in the ointment, what's he going to do, and no one's paying attention to him. So, he's busy getting things going for himself. So, let's do a quick little roll call, see who's all here. Do want to thank my moderators for being on here tonight. We have BJ Bumblebee, Christienah, that's joined us over here. I saw 10,000 Lakes BC. She's here tonight. And we had Kathleen Vaglio. She was over here just a moment ago. So all of our moderators are here. Show them some love. Thank them for being here. They do a great job keeping our chat rooms safe and keeping it, kosher for everyone, so that everybody's able to put their thoughts and opinions out there without being made fun of. Of course, if we use any harsh language, any belittling or anything like that, making fun of our guests or making fun of any ministries or anything like that, our moderators have been asked to and have the authority to remove such comments. You'll be warned a couple times, and then you will be removed from the channel. So that's what they do. We take that very seriously on here, because we represent the body of Christ, and we don't want to be misrepresented with that kind of drama. All right, so that's what they're here to do. So make sure you thank them for their job tonight and what they're doing. All right. Our Clam Knight says, Greg brought me here. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and for all of our people that are here from NyPrepper's channel. He should be on here in any moment. He just texted and said that he's about to come on, so he should be popping on here in just any moment, guys. You know how Greg likes to do it, so we just kind of wait for him, and then he'll be here. We've got Sergeant Johnson popping on. Good to have you. We got Deanne Shaw. Clary, good to have you on tonight. We've got Solar Eclipse. Let's see. Russell Watkins, good to have you with us this evening. Bob Lemon. Mighty Doe. Giovanni, good to have you. Let's see. We got Belinda, Repose, and Amia Grace. Let's see who else here. Give me just some rolling through. We got Ida Evans with us this evening. So a lot of you guys popping on tonight. And of course, we got a plethora of you guys watching us over on X tonight. So if you're on X, you guys can get into the chat room. If you do, I'll be able to see your stuff. We're also on, I believe, we're on Facebook tonight. So over on the DailyExcellence, which reminds me, if you haven't done so yet, please follow us over on Facebook. You can follow us at DailyExcellence. Very simple to do. Follow us there. We've been putting out reels and Bible verses on daily over there. And I think we're live over there tonight. Not 100% sure, but I do believe we're live over there. So please take the opportunity to follow us over there. And we're also on Instagram as well. So we're trying to get to about 500 followers both on Instagram and on Facebook. Short-term goal there, just to kind of help us get the algorithms going in our favor. So if you guys have those, even if you don't use them very much, please join us over there. Follow us, help us out. We greatly appreciate that. And we appreciate you guys that are following us over on X tonight as well. Sandy M., good to have you with us. Judy Booth, good to have you with us. Rain Redmond, good to see you tonight. And so we're just waiting on NyPrepper here. He should be here in just a moment. We're going to get into the subject. Let's see. We're going to get into the subject about all these conflicts that are going on around the world. Why is no one talking about Russia telling Trump, no, he stands with Iran? I'm not 100% sure about that one. That could be, it makes sense though. That could be why we're seeing a flip over, a huge flip in Russia's stance though. That does kind of make sense, which we'll get into here in just a few moments. John, good to have you from Oklahoma. Be careful of them tornadoes tonight, my friend. All right. I think that's Greg joining us there. We'll get you in the... All right. Give me just a second here. We got NyPrepper here. He says he's in the green room. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to try this again. We had to rig something up, so hopefully you guys can hear us good. There may be a bit of an echo or things like that tonight. We do apologize. I've never had this happen before, so pretty interesting stuff. But I've got NyPrepper here on the line, and so hopefully you guys will be able to hear him this evening. BJ says we're coming in 5x5, and so we'll see if Greg is coming in, NyPrepper.
Yeah.
So
can you guys hear me?
Can you guys hear Greg? Just kind of... You guys hear him?
I can hear you guys. I can hear you.
well. Okay. Yep. BJ says everyone says they can hear you, so we're good.
Okay.
All right. So it's gonna be a little fuzzy on his end. Like I said, I don't know what in the world happened, but we're gonna go from there. We do appreciate you guys hanging in with us, and we will definitely be working on this audio tonight for sure. So, all right. With that being said, thank you guys for being here tonight. We're gonna go ahead and just get started on this. We got a lot going on with the Middle East tonight, with things going on with Iran. The question that I posed, and we kind of talked about this last time we were on, was this: is the worst case scenario unfolding right now? What do you say? Would you say that the worst case scenario is unfolding right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, it's like a perfect storm, possibly. We have China now doing blockade drills around Taiwan. They've already positioned their aircraft carrier outside of Taiwan with 20 warships. And then we also have Putin announcing that, or Putin just signed an order to conscript 160,000 people into the Russian army. So sounds like he's preparing for something,
Yeah, and then also on top of that, we're getting reports, and I shared this a little while ago here, and I'll put it back on the screen for everyone. But we're getting U.S. cargo planes now pouring into the Middle East, which is also signaling looming escalation. And so we're seeing several different types of aircrafts. We've got bunker busters being deployed over to the Indian Ocean right now. So a lot of military buildup happening over there. We've got Iran making threats to make a preemptive strike on U.S. bases. This was a news release from M Times Headlines about 4 hours ago. And then Putin warning the United States that a strike on Iran would have catastrophic consequences. So things are definitely escalating. Then you've got Qatar and the UAE have joined Israel and the United States Air Forces in military drills and exercises in Greece. With that happening. So I guess the question is last time we were on, we were talking about, there seemed to be kind of like a little, a friendly gesture going on between Trump and Putin, but that seems to have gone away. I don't think that friendly gesture is there anymore. It seems like, they're not happy with each other. Maybe the deal didn't work out very well over there in Russia. So what do you think is, what do you think is transpiring?
I think Russia refused to go for the deal that was offered to them because Russia wants Ukraine to accept the occupied territory. Ukraine does not want to give the occupied territories to Russia. Russia wants them to be officially recognized internationally and by Ukraine. So basically they want Ukraine to surrender, and Ukraine doesn't want to do that. And so, which rightfully so, it's their land, so they don't want to just give it up, because once they give it up, they'll never get it back. Once they actually surrender it and it's internationally recognized, by the U.S. and multiple countries that this is Russian soil, it'll be, impossible at that point. I mean, it's nearly impossible now, but it'll be totally impossible. So Ukraine doesn't want to do that. But basically, Russia has continued with their maximalist demands. They haven't shown any willingness to compromise with the exception of the Black Sea grain deal and no strikes on infrastructure, the energy ceasefire. But the energy ceasefire was more of a benefit for Russia because Russia was getting pounded by Ukrainian drones. They were taking out oil refineries every single day. for the last month, a new oil refinery every single day getting hit by the Ukrainians. So the energy ceasefire was good for Russia, because obviously they're dependent on their oil and gas to survive, to make money for their economy. That's like their bread and butter for their economy, So, but other than that, Putin was not showing any willingness to compromise in any way. Basically, he continued, from what I heard today, that Putin basically was unwilling to compromise in any of the big areas, which is the occupied territories. They wanted Ukraine to have a limit to how many troops they can have and what kind of weapons they can have. Obviously, Ukraine's not going to accept that. And then also no NATO membership, which is not a big deal, but I think the big issues for Ukraine was the occupied territories. Russia basically wanted Ukraine to admit, that this is your territory now, and they wanted, the caps on the military, the Ukrainian military. Some of those caps, it's not just the number of troops, like ground troops, but the concerning thing is that the caps that Russia would want is no missile systems that have a range of like more than 15 miles, which is basically insane, So that's like basically like artillery most artillery is like 10 to 20 miles. So no missile systems, no drones. Probably would also include no air defenses, because air defenses have missiles too. So Ukraine's not going to agree to that. So that's what I heard, and I think that's why Trump got annoyed with Putin, because Trump, as you know, has been bending over backwards to try to please Russia and show Russia that they're willing to meet in the middle. Look at that whole argument with Zelensky in the Oval Office was because Trump was trying to show Russia that, look, I'm not on Ukraine's side. I'm not on anyone's side. I'm trying to get these two guys together and meet in the middle. And basically Russia's not reciprocating. I think at this point, Putin feels like he has an advantage over Ukraine. And that's why and the U.S., and that's why he's not giving in, because there must be something that he feels that he doesn't have to do this peace deal. It's not really necessary. You know what I mean? It's not like he's struggling on the front lines. The Ukrainians are struggling now because they ran out of weapons. They lost a lot of men, but Russia's not struggling as much, so they can wait it out. And maybe Putin feels like, I'd rather just wait it out and sign some deal that's basically going to undermine the whole reason why we invaded Ukraine. Basically it would make Putin look weak and like a fool, especially at home, if he suddenly surrendered and signed a deal with Trump. You got to think who Putin is psychologically. He's a hardcore KGB man. He joined the KGB at the age of 18. He went to the best, most elite spy school. And then, the people who support him, the really nationalist Russians, how are they going to take it if Putin signs a deal with Trump? It's going to basically make Putin look weak. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to happen. It's clear that it's not going to happen at this point. So the question is, what's the next step? What's going to happen now if the diplomacy fails and Trump and Putin, the peace deal is off, which it is at this point. The Russians rejected it. The Ukraine would have to really capitulate completely in order to get any kind of deal going. So then Trump would have to put more pressure on Ukraine to satisfy Russia. And so we'll have to see if Trump is willing to make himself look more like Putin's lapdog, or is he going to say enough is enough? We've bent over backwards so much for Russia. Now it's time to put the squeeze on Russia a little bit. Does that mean that they're going to start doing sanctions, then maybe give more weapons to Ukraine? Who knows? But it's not looking like there's going to be any peace at this point, based on what I've seen. So Putin, you got to understand Putin's goals too. Ukraine is not the end game. Ukraine was just the first step. Ukraine was more like dipping his toes in the water. After he's done with Ukraine, he's not just going to stop and say, "Oh, that's it." He may stop for a couple of years or a little while, but he's going to keep going, doing other things. I don't know. Some people think he's going to attack the Baltics or Scandinavia or Poland, or that's a possibility. But he's made it clear that he wants what his goals are. He's made it very clear, and so we shouldn't kind of like be very wishy-washy with who he is. I mean, when we see what he's done and what his goals are, I mean, it's pretty clear to me, at least. So I don't think he's going to stop. Putin's not going to stop. He's not going to give in to any kind of pressure from Trump. I don't think that's going to happen. In my opinion, he's too. Putin, I think at this point, I mean, he's a wartime leader. He's a wartime leader, so he probably feels like he's a little bit unstoppable at this point. Why would he stop now and sign a deal when he's got the momentum on his side? He's taken a huge swath of Ukraine. I mean, yeah, he's lost a lot of men and he's lost a lot of equipment, but look at what he's gained.
Mm-hmm.
He's gained like 20 to 30% of Ukraine, and that's a huge country. Ukraine is massive. That's like taking an entire American state. The amount of land that he's taken over. Think about all the resources, the farmland, the giant power plant that he got, the water resources, the land connection to Crimea. So he's achieved a lot. It's just that the media doesn't show it that way. They show it as, oh, Putin's barely hanging on. His men are eating their shoes, and they don't have rifles, and it doesn't matter. They've achieved a lot already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's correct, and you brought up a good point. Is now that the United States has withdrawn its support of weapons and money and all this stuff, that kind of boosted Putin up a little bit to maybe take a step back and say, you know what, let's just kind of leave things as they are. They've made some good progress over there. You got to think it from a political point of view as well. Trump's in office for 4 years. We could be back in the same position in 4 years, so why go backwards, when he knows that Trump's not going to be in there, but just a couple of years. And then, you could have AOC as president in 2028, because she put her hat in. They're trying to put her in as a front runner, and so it's not a far-fetced idea. And so if you take a back seat on that, and apparently, he's holding some cards. He's got something up his sleeve where he doesn't really need the United States. If you don't need the United States, then you tend to stick with your allies. Or just kind of where things are going, because we see now that Putin's sticking up for Iran, and he's basically saying, hey, if you're going after him, that's going to be a bad thing for you, because we're coming too,
Right.
And so it's kind of what I, before we got on here, it's what I was telling people. It seems like both the theaters of Russia and the Ukraine, and of Iran and Israel and the United States, it seems like that all of that's now becoming one big issue. We've got, France, and I think was it the United Kingdom, are now putting boots on the ground to help fight the Russians and Ukraine. Okay, so those are obviously NATO countries that would invoke the 25th article and possibly get us involved in it, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure we'll go.
I don't think so. Yeah.
With this administration, with Trump, I think we'll break that NATO pact. We may not even.
We might send some forces, but more like support, or we may not send a massive brigades like Normandy, where we're going to do beach landings in St. Petersburg or something. I don't see Trump doing that, but we could send, let's say, Patriot batteries, or maybe some Stinger missiles, or maybe a couple of token forces. But yeah, I don't see any beach landings like Normandy style on Russia or anytime soon, or any kind of carpet bombing over Moscow.
We may not even be a part of NATO. I mean,
Right.
we might be.
Right.
We may be withdrawn out of NATO, but it seems like the main focus point is on Iran, and going after their nuclear sites and things like that. And so, which would pull Russia. Many people believe that Russia is the bear of the North. And that would pull Russia southward for sure, bringing it into Israel's backyard. Of course, anything that happens in Iran, Israel is going to take the hit off of that. And so we'll be defending our strongest ally, Israel, on top of that. And so it's definitely I guess it's just whoever's going to light the fuse first is what it looks like. And once it goes, everyone's just going to go along with it. We also have, and so I saw this in the comments a little while ago, but we've got North Korea and South Korea. No one's talking about North Korea or Kim Jong-un. Like we don't know what that guy is going to do or how he's going to play in all this, but we know he's aligned with Iran and he's aligned with China, and China is aligned with Russia. And so, that's a threat too that we have to potentially look at as well. I saw pictures today of Iran's, hypersonic missiles, which those hypersonics are capable of carrying a nuclear payload. And that kind of goes against all those who, think that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. I personally believe they do have one. I think they've had one for a very long time. Either they've made one of their own, or somebody's already given it to them. When you've got Russia, who as your ally, who outside of the United States has the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons, can't tell me that Iran didn't get a few gifts. Okay,
right?
To believe that they don't have it, you're just not thinking very logically, in my opinion. So
maybe that's why they haven't hit Iran yet, because maybe they're afraid that they have nukes, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and they're afraid they're going to retaliate with them or something.
Yeah, it's very possible. You kind of have to take that into consideration, and who they're going to hit. They're going to go after Israel, and that puts Israel in a bad position. And of course, we got to watch out here in the United States, because we've got, Kim Jong-un up there that may try to launch some things in our direction as well. So it's a very interesting scenario that seems to be unfolding all over the place. And like I had mentioned earlier, we don't, obviously something is going to take place. You just don't send that much assets over into the Middle East like we've been doing, unless, there's a probable cause to do it, unless there's an actual plan to take place. And we're seeing other nations really come together. One of the things too that I'm also seeing is it looks like, we talk about NATO, but it seems like that this particular scenario might rip NATO in half. May actually rip the alliance. You got Turkey, who's going to side with Iran.
Right.
You got the globalists kind of infiltrating NATO with the craziness that took place in France. Kind of like what would happen here in the United States, except the people rose up with Trump, and we couldn't get away with it. But they arrested their opposition over there and threw them in jail, and pretty much stole that election, in my opinion, over there. And so you've got France that's doing their thing over there. Who knows what's going on in the United Kingdom with their king in charge, and so a lot of different things. So with that happening, of course, you alluded to at the beginning of this, with China coming in and kind of surrounding Taiwan. Now, is it under your belief, or do you think, let me rephrase this, I personally think, in my own personal opinion, that once or if chaos breaks out on one side of the globe, China's going to take advantage of that moment and just go ahead and take Taiwan. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think that's why they suddenly did this drill yesterday, or they started. Because it's like 12 hours ahead. So they actually started yesterday by our standards. I think that's why they just suddenly did that drill, because of everything happening with Iran and the stealth bombers going to Diego Garcia. I think China sees that this is an opportunity. Once the U.S. is bogged down in Iran, they know that our ability to respond and defend Taiwan is going to be delayed. Yeah, we can defend them, but it's not going to be the same as if like we're in the middle of a massive campaign against Iran. All our efforts are going to be over there. A lot of our assets are going to be there. Our bombers, everything. 2 carriers, 3 carrier strike groups are going to be there at some point. So that's all that firepower that's going to be focused on Iran instead of defending Taiwan. So I think they definitely see that as an opportunity. I think at the very least, if they don't actually do like beach landings and stuff and try to take over Taiwan, I think they could at the very least enforce some kind of a blockade, which would basically sort of like, it would be a way for China to punish Taiwan without getting super messy in like an active war like Russia is in Ukraine, bloody war. Because a blockade, nobody's getting killed, nobody's shooting at each other. They're just blocking ships from passing through. So they could enforce some kind of a blockade and economically damage Taiwan or do something like that, where it's an escalation, but it's just shy of outright war. So it'll prevent the U.S. from getting involved, because the U.S. will say, well, it's just a blockade. What are we gonna go in there with our aircraft carrier and break up a blockade that China set up and then get into a full-blown war with China? That could be the thought by a lot of people in Trump's administration, like Vance and others. They may say, well, what are we going to do? We're going to go in there with our carriers and break up a Chinese blockade that would just bring us directly into war with China. So they could do something like that, kind of like a hybrid invasion, rather than a full-on invasion. But it's really hard to say, because they've been training with these barges that, they can build bridges on barges. So they stretch out this bridge, and it's literally floating on barges, and they'll pull their ship up to that, and they'll unload, hundreds and hundreds of tanks and stuff like that onto that bridge and just land right on the beach,
Yeah.
So they've already practiced for it. So it's really hard to say, but that's one possibility, that they could just do a blockade. And if that doesn't work, then they could obviously, use missiles or, full-on beach landings. You also got to think, is it in China's interest to actually invade Taiwan and take it over? Do they really need to do that? They don't necessarily have to invade it, send boots on the ground and take it over like old-fashioned war. They don't necessarily need to do that. They can just do what Russia did to Ukraine, which is bomb their cities, bomb their energy, and basically terrorize them and break them down, break their economy down, have a blockade, launch missiles at them periodically, and just, demilitarize them, weaken their economy, and basically, without having to go in there and sacrifice troops and all this, they can achieve basically the same results without having to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, and you brought up the question, is it really in China's best interest to even take Taiwan? And if you're trying to dethrone the United States, then yes. And it all goes back to, because we don't make nothing here. Most of our technology, our computer chips, our semiconductors, all these things come from Taiwan. They make that stuff for us. Then they get shipped over here. So if you're trying to shut us down and disrupt our way of life over here, then yes, Taiwan would be a good country to take over or put a blockade on, or right. If you're trying to dethrone your competition,
right?
So that and I believe that's what China is really trying to do. on
I
their
think
end.
Taiwan is sort of like Ukraine for China, because Russia was afraid that Ukraine was going to join the EU, join NATO, and then that's right next to their border, right next to Moscow and everything. And Russia was afraid that, there would be NATO forces deployed into Ukraine right next to them, So they saw that as like NATO's expansion right into their backyard. And I think China sees Taiwan as the same issue. It's American expansion right into their backyard. It would be like if China, if like Puerto Rico, rebelled and said, we're not going to be a territory anymore of the U.S., and then China sent Patriot missiles to Puerto Rico and said, yeah, we support Puerto Rico, against America. So that's like the same equivalent. It's like, we're right in their backyard. So I think for China, it is a very important issue strategically for them, So I totally agree that, like you said, it's dethroning us, basically weakening our sphere of influence,
Yeah, and I'm seeing on here that it looks like our Secretary of Defense, the Pentagon announces that the Secretary of Defense has directed the USS Truman aircraft carrier to remain in Central Command area, in that area, and they're also deploying more aircraft into the area, and this has been within the last couple hours. So,
oh wow, last couple of hours. Okay.
Yeah, this came out 3 hours ago.
I know that they are moving the Carl Vinson to the region now as well.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that are supposed to move like later on in the month as well. So
yeah, this is the Carl Vinson's strike group will also deploy to enhance stability. So that one's going over there, and then the USS Truman is heading that direction. And then at the same time, they're also sending even more aircraft into the region. So this is all heading toward Iran.
Yeah, and there's a lot of equipment that Biden. Remember when Biden was dealing with Iran and the Houthis? He didn't deal with them the best way, but we moved a ton of ships over there to intercept the missiles and all that, and to deal with the proxies. So there's a lot of equipment that's already been there. I know we moved like several squadrons of F-15s to Qatar. They're probably still there. So what the big giveaway to me is, aside from the stealth bombers, that's a huge giveaway. Aside from that is all the military transport planes that have been going to Qatar and the Middle East over the last couple of days. I've seen over 20 plus C-17 Globemasters. And, for them to move that many military transport planes into one area of the world, they're moving a lot of stuff in, like probably Patriot missiles, air defenses. That, from what I heard, is that they're scrambling to set up air defenses to protect everything. So they're sending a ton of Patriot missiles and different things like that in case Iran responds with strikes on our bases, our oil fields. They could launch missiles at the Saudi oil fields or the oil fields in Kuwait or even Syria. We have oil fields there. They can do a lot of different things. They don't necessarily just have to sink a carrier or something. They can do a lot of damage. So that's a huge giveaway there. And then a ton of aerial refuelers have been moved to the Middle East as well. I counted over 25 or so aerial refueling aircraft over the last 4 days or so, which is insane. And you'd obviously need that if you're launching some kind of, bombing campaign, not so much for the stealth bombers, but more so for the fighter jets that, let's say, because Israel's probably going to take part. Most definitely they're going to take part. So their fighter jets are going to need to be refueled somewhere like halfway, because fighter jets don't have a huge fuel tank, and from Israel to Iran is a pretty good distance, so they need all that to refuel the fighter jets. Obviously, they can't they can't target everything with the stealth bombers, because the stealth bombers have a specific purpose. They're like the sledgehammer. If you're hammering 2x4s together, you're building a wall, you're not going to use a sledgehammer, right? You're going to use a regular carpenter's hammer. So they can't just use the stealth bombers by themselves, because those are used specifically for bunker busting and heavy ordnance. And so there may be smaller targets that they want to hit in Iran, smaller targets that they don't need the stealth bombers for, and they can use fighter jets with air to ground missiles, different types of bombs and cruise missiles, different things. If they want to take out they're probably going to want to take out their air defenses for sure. They're going to take out the air defenses probably simultaneously, or actually after the stealth bombers, because they don't want to give anything away. And the stealth bombers they can penetrate any air defense in the world, so they don't need the air defenses to be taken down before they go in. They're built to deliver nuclear weapons, nuclear bombs in Russia. I mean, you can literally take a stealth bomber and fly it from Missouri all the way to Moscow and drop a bunch of bombs on Moscow, and then fly back with one tank of fuel and without any threat of air defense to you at all. So yeah, it's going to be a massive campaign, because I've done a lot of detailed research on Iran. I've done it a lot on my live streams, and Iran it's not like Iraq. I'm sure you're probably aware of this, but a lot of people think shock and awe was a big deal, Desert Storm, and then later on in the early 2000s. But this is going to be much, much bigger. You have 7 stealth bombers there, and most likely what they're going to use, I could be wrong, but logically it makes sense they would use what's known as the massive ordnance penetrator. It's a new bomb that the Air Force just made, and it's specifically made for bunker busting. It's basically like a Moab. It has basically the same size bomb as a Moab, but rather than bursting on the ground and destroying soft targets over a large area like the Moab does, it can penetrate 200 feet of concrete, and it has a smart fuse, so it can sense voids. If they don't know the depth of the bunker, the bomb itself will be able to figure out where the void, once it senses a void, it will blow up. And it doesn't necessarily have to even reach the bunker itself, because the explosive power is so massive that even if it doesn't reach the actual bunker, but it blows up 100 feet above the bunker, the shock wave will be transmitted through the earth, and it would just collapse the whole bunker. It would be like a coal mine caving in.
Yeah.
So that's probably what they're going to do if they do it. If Trump decides to do it, that's what they'll probably do. And then they'll use the fighter jets, variety of fighter jets, F-18s, F-16s, F-15s, F-35s, of course. And they'll use that for air defenses and smaller targets, that are not hardened targets. But Iran is just a mountainous country. The whole country, it's like the Rocky Mountains. If you look at their topography, the whole country is just literally all mountains, and they're like 6,000 feet plus solid rock, so there's just bunkers all over the place. Some of these bunkers are quite massive. They have hundreds and hundreds of missiles in these bunkers. So, they're going to have to use those stealth bombers to take those bunkers out. And then really the main nuclear facilities that they're probably going to want to go after is obviously Natanz. That's the most famous one. Natanz, which is like in the middle center of Iraq or Iran. And then you have Fordow, and then you have Isfahan. Those are like the big 3. And then there's also some other smaller ones, but those are going to be the big ones that they probably are going to try to go after. And they're also going to have to take out the launchers that Iran has. They have their own offensive missiles that they can use that are close to the Persian Gulf. Cruise missiles, short-range missiles that they can use to strike Saudi Arabia and our oil fields and different things, short-range missiles, cruise missile launchers. They're going to use the fighter jets to take those out. They're not going to use the stealth bomber to do that. So that's what the fighter jets are for, and that's what the aerial refuelers are for as well. So it's going to be crazy when it goes down. I think from what I'm hearing, I heard today on one of the Israeli media outlets said that one of the Israeli government sources said that it's going to be unprecedented. It's going to be something we haven't seen since World War II in terms of the intensity of the bombing. So, we're talking like Hitler bombing London, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think that was Israel Channel 14. Because I'm looking at it right here. They said that a large-scale attack on Iran will begin soon, an attack unprecedented since World War II. So, had somebody in the chat room saying that right now there is an emergency meeting in Washington. Yeah, emergency meeting in Washington, D.C. right now. Russia threatens. So, I don't know the the confirmation of that, but there's that in the chat room. Then I think part of this too is we have Donald Trump, who declares that if Iran does not agree to the nuclear deal, that America will bomb Iran like never before. Is it possible? We see all this back and forth and all the preparations and things like this, but is it possible it's kind of like a playground theatric? like okay, are we just testing to see if they're actually going to do it? Like, is it possible that maybe they're just testing Trump just to see, hey, is this guy crazy enough? Like, is he actually going to do it? Like maybe they're just trying to call his bluff.
It could be, yeah. Well, that's kind of the issue that we have now, is that Trump basically put himself in a situation where he can't back himself out of it now, because if he does, he's going to look weak,
Yeah.
So he kind of put himself in a bad position with all this loud talk. Oh, we're going to bomb you like you've never been bombed before. And then if next week he pulls the stealth bombers away, how stupid he's going to look. So it's almost like he has to do something now, because of all the talk. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was just kind of wondering because it seems to be what it is. It's like, everyone's just basically going back and forth and saying, well, we're going to get you like you've never been got before. Oh, if you do this, it's going to be catastrophic. We've seen the same language actually coming from both Trump and Putin towards each other.
Yes, yeah.
And, somebody, are they both calling each other's bluff, or, are we just going to sit here and one day, they're just going to start flipping buttons and turning knobs, and here we go, I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering, if it's all...
It's like a stare down between The Rock and Stone Cold, late 90s.
Right. I'm just wondering, if that's what's really going on here, if, they're really not meaning for it to escalate this much so fast. So, but we'll see what happens for sure on that kind of thing. 2 B-1 Lance bombers are on their way to the Middle East. And that was as of 9 hours ago. So
I heard something about that too. I just couldn't confirm it.
Yeah.
Is that credible? That's a credible. It sounds like. That sounds like it would make sense to bring some of those in too.
Yeah. So, report coming into Iranian media reports that the Revolutionary Guard seized 2 foreign ships in the Gulf for allegedly smuggling fuel. That may probably be ours. Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's see. So, of course, something I failed to mention that was very interesting. We had the attempted, and I want to get your thought on this too, but we had the attempted assassination, allegedly, of Putin at all this. And you kind of talked about, this.
Yep.
You talked to that in a couple of weeks. You said it. You said in a couple of weeks, don't be surprised if there's a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's that about?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that maybe Zelensky and the Ukrainians are kind of switching tactics now because they feel. I wonder. So this is what I think. I think that when Biden was president, Biden was a big softy. He didn't want to piss Putin off. He delayed giving Ukraine weapons. He gave them the bare minimum. And I think Biden probably told Zelensky, listen, we'll give you all these weapons. We'll give you what you need. But you have to promise me you're not going to go after Putin and you're not going to go after Moscow. And I think that there was a deal there that was struck between Biden and, in order to get the ATACMS and those long-range missiles, I think they had an agreement. But now that agreement is obviously out the window because you have Trump, and there's a different dynamic between Trump and Zelensky. So I think now that Biden is out of the picture, Ukraine feels like, okay, America's not giving us any more weapons. So what do we have to lose to go after Putin? We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So I think versus when Biden was president, they were afraid to do that because then Biden would say, we're not going to give you ATACMS if we find out that there's car bombings of Putin's vehicles every week in Moscow. But now I think they're basically changing their tactics, different president. And I think also maybe it's a little bit of a desperation act because Zelensky and Ukraine, they know that if they don't get new weapons in, the last thing I heard today, according to the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate, they estimated that they have about 3 to 4 months of weapons left. So that's not much,
No, that's not.
That's not a lot of time. So they could be searching for asymmetrical means to attack Russia. We've seen them do that in the past. That's what they're good at, with the long-range drone attacks on the oil fields, or they went after the Crimean Bridge, or, the Ukrainians are good at, these asymmetrical type of things. So maybe that's just a new tactic. It's a sign, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a sign of a desperation. And also it's a sign that the dynamic between, the White House and Ukraine is different, obviously. So,
yeah, I think the whole world sees that it's definitely, obviously, is different than what it was before. So, which is kind of scary for us a little bit. But like I said, we don't really know what's at play behind the scenes with some of this either, or who's pulling the chess pieces. But
one thing I want to add about Iran too that we should be on the lookout for is whether Trump is going to go after the leader. He's going to try to decapitate the government, because we've seen Trump do that in the past. When he was president the first time around, he took out Soleimani, if you remember.
Yeah.
It was just like a normal day, and then suddenly the news broke that Soleimani was taken out. It was crazy, it just came out of nowhere. So I think Trump, I would not be surprised if he would try to take out Khamenei and take out the whole Iranian government. And, I would not be surprised. So that would be, if he did that, that would be really crazy, because then what would happen to the vacuum there, who's going to fill the void. But from what I understand, there's a lot of Iranian people that are not, like hardline Muslim extremist, pro Khamenei types. There's a lot of Iranians that are very Western, and a lot of Iranians come to America and work in like tech jobs, and they come on like, visas and stuff. So there's a lot of Iranian people that want to see Khamenei gone. In 2009, I don't know if you remember this, but when Obama first became president in 2009, there was an uprising in Iran, and Obama refused to help the people, rebel. He said, well, we're not going to be the world's policeman. We're not going to get involved. And he just basically let those rebellions naturally die off. But there was a huge rebellion there. This was like 2009, just a few months after Obama got sworn in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It looks like there's a video here that surfaced, and it actually has what you were talking about a little while ago, Channel 14 in Israel. They thought it might have been a fake, but a video has surfaced claiming that an attack will happen on Iran and very soon, and then they actually have the video on here, so I'll tag you in that so you can see that. But it's on there.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I believe it. I think that Trump has a soft spot for Israel for some reason. Why, I'm not too sure, but he definitely has a soft spot for Israel. So I definitely think it's most likely gonna happen.
Yeah. Just the severity of it is kind of what we're wanting to see. You got Putin over here too, stating that if we go after their infrastructure, that it's going to be catastrophic for the whole region. So just exactly what he means, we don't know with that. So there's a lot going on, in the near future, looks like. And so, we can pray that cooler heads will prevail, obviously, which would probably be the best thing we can all do, because a war of this magnitude with this many countries involved, you can just about guarantee that everyone globally is going to be affected by this. With gas prices, oil prices shooting up like crazy. Pretty much, I would say it would be instantaneously as soon as the first bomb gets dropped in Iran. Just expect gas prices just to go insane, right away. And then of course, we got all the tariffs that are going to be going into effect tomorrow with automotive and a bunch of other things. So there's that, which is also playing a part in some of this that's going on too. So a lot of different things that we're going to have to contend with, it looks like, as the world begins to go a little bit crazy right now. And if this is, and I'm not saying it is, and I've seen it in the comments this evening, a lot of people are pointing towards Ezekiel 38, Ezekiel 39, and it could be that. But the only thing is with this particular war, Israel would be affected, but it doesn't seem like Israel's like the main subject here. The main subject appears to be between the United States and Iran and Russia, but Israel would be caught in the middle of it all. And so I'm not 100% sure. My understanding of Ezekiel 30-39 is that everyone's coming down to take Israel. And maybe they may make that move if, for whatever reason, the United States ends up being incapacitated. So maybe, if we became incapacitated for a while, then maybe that potential scenario could unfold where you would get the Ezekiel 38-39 prophecy being fulfilled. And if you do read that, there's definitely a description of what we would consider modern day of nuclear weapons being used on a large scale in that prophecy. So, I know you alluded to World War II a lot this evening, and a lot of the storming of Normandy, D-Day, soldiers being carried in and things like that. My personal opinion on that particular part is I'm not too sure how many boots on the ground we would have in our technological age. I don't think anything quite like World War II, but everything's going to be remote. A lot of drones, a lot of space type weaponry. We've got those. Israelis have got the laser technology that they've been working on. Hypothetically, there's also cloaking technology. Stephen Ben-Noon will tell you all about that. So
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, they can kind of just hide objects now in plain sight, and then once they start using them, it's too late for the enemy to know. So pretty interesting stuff there if you ever get a chance to check it out. But we definitely need to pray in these days. We need to pray for that peaceful, calmer heads prevail, that solutions would come out instead of problems, and that a deal could be made that would bring peace to all. we can pray for that, and it's a good idea to pray for that. We should pray for that, but we also understand what Bible prophecy tells us as we are heading into these last days very quickly. We know that times like this are going to come, whether it's either now or later down the road. We're going to enter this one way or the other. And so we do these videos not to like scare people or anything like that, but we do these videos to give awareness of the situation that we're facing on a global scale, which will affect all of us one way or another. It'll affect us, on our day-to-day lives. Like I said, grocery stores, gas stations. It'll affect us when, our sons and daughters get called to go fight overseas. It'll affect us in our ability to defend ourselves, like as things get depleted along the way. Every world war, the world changed, and those who led the world changed as well. The monetary systems changed at every world war. And if we go into a world war system, once it's completed, the world's going to be different. You're going to have new people in charge. You're going to have new monetary systems in charge. And you're going to have, different things that are going to happen that are not going to be the same as it is now. It's a complete reset every time it happens. And when you look at it in this day and age that we're in, that reset that comes could potentially be the Antichrist himself. It is very possible as this stage is being laid out before us. And so you have to look at that, we could cryptocurrency, everyone's switching over to blockchain technology to do their financing and money and systems and things like that. That could be the new system once this thing passes through. So there's definitely more to it than just what we're seeing on the ground. But there's more. There's the infrastructure behind it that could definitely be in play as well. So, like I said, we don't really know the fullness of what's really happening, what the wars are really about. It could very simply be that, hey, here in the United States, we're switching over to AI, we're switching over to cryptocurrency, and Russia's not down for it. It could be that. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, definitely.
The rest of these other countries just may not be ready for what we're proposing here in the West, and that's what the battle is all about. We don't know.
Yeah, well, think about Elon Musk. One reason I think that Trump appointed Elon Musk was, he didn't really keep it secret. It's because Elon Musk is a tech genius, and Trump wants to be the number one AI country. He wants America to be the number one AI country. He wants to beat Russia and China to it. He sees it as a competition, like the next arms race, the next space race. He sees the race for AI and as a very important thing. So that's why he appointed Elon Musk, But yeah, the AI is just, there's so many things that can go wrong with that. And now they're implementing it into our military. Mm-hmm. The B-21 Raiders, those are the new stealth bombers that are going to replace the current ones. They're going to be AI controlled. They can be piloted by people, but they can also be piloted autonomously by AI. So basically, all you have to do is just tell them, tell these bombers, nuclear bombers, okay, we want you to attack Russia, and the bombers will just fly themselves and figure out which targets to hit. You don't even have to do anything, and they'll do everything. They'll adjust mid-flight if needed. It's just straight out of Hollywood, like Terminator. That's how the whole movie Terminator was about. The U.S. military coming up with this brilliant idea that sounded great on paper, that we're going to give AI control of all of our strategic defense, which would cut down the reaction time. And I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something like that now, because it sounds great on paper, a lot of these things with AI, like especially integrating it into the military and things like nuclear war. Seconds and minutes matter. And if you have AI where the AI can launch everything all at the same time, and you don't have people physically sitting behind computers and pushing buttons and turning keys and listening to codes and doing all that. That takes time. It's people think that like nuclear war is just Trump is going to push a button and it's going to launch everything, or Putin is going to push a button and everything is going to launch. No, there's thousands of, pilots. You have planes that have to be fueled up and ready to go, pilots that have to be trained constantly. You have people sitting in the missile launch control centers to control the missiles and launch them, and everything has to be performed flawlessly for it all to happen. And so the justification that they're going to make, just like in the movie Terminator, is that we need to automate it. We need to automate that, get the people out of it, make it streamlined, so the president just has to push a button and everything gets launched.
Yeah. And then, on top of all that you've mentioned, we've got the implementation of, computer chips in the human brain that's, in testing trial now that they're into. It's Elon Musk has a company, and then the United States government has a company that's doing that as well. So you have two different kind of controlling companies that are investing in that particular technology as well. And so there's a lot happening. The world is changing very, very quickly. And whenever the world is changing quickly, you're going to have people that are going to fight against that are not going to want to go with those changes. And I personally, my own opinion, just can't help but think that that's partially why we're having all the conflicts that we're having around the globe, because of the direction that things are going. So that's just, my 2 cents on that. So we'll see what happens, but change is coming, whether we like it or not. So, my advice to everybody here tonight is just do this one simple thing, and that's make sure that your heart doesn't change. Make sure it stays on track with the Lord. Make sure that your life is where it should be. Don't take a spiritual vacation and get into the things of the flesh, but make sure that all is well with your soul. Make sure that you're covered under the blood of Jesus. Make sure that you're saved by His grace. Make sure that without a shadow of a doubt that if you die tonight, that heaven is your home. That's the best preparation that you can have in a time like this. And if you are, a part of that, and you know that, then you are prepared for anything that can come our way. God will give you instruction on what you need to do. If He will tell you where you need to go. He makes provision for His people. There's all kinds of things that the Lord will do for us until that time when prophecy fulfills itself and we won't be here. Scripture tells us that we're not appointed to wrath, so we won't be here when the really, really big stuff happens. But I do believe we will catch on some of this. I think we're going to see a little bit before we get to that place, and so you're going to need to be ready. We start talking about nuclear weapons and we start talking about mass destruction and on the global scale, things like that, you have to keep in mind that lives will be lost. And so, if you are part of that number, you want to make sure that, you're saved and that all is well with you and things like that. And so, I'm not trying to drive fear. I just want to drive salvation, because as long as you're saved, then you have what the Word of God tells us, a peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's what my hope is tonight. But at the same time, I want to give you guys awareness in your spirits of what's taking place, an awareness that we are living in the last days. We are living in the last moments. We are on the edge of eternity tonight as we discuss these things, because everything that we're discussing is biblical. These things have been written out thousands of years before in prophecy, and now we're living in that prophetic age right now. So that's why we do these videos. That's why we bring you on to give us your 2 cents, let us know what's going on. So but I appreciate you coming on tonight. I apologize for this technical issue we had. I have no idea what's going on with that, but we will definitely get that worked out for for the next time that you come on. So
No worries. It seemed to work this way.
yeah, I didn't get any complaints, so I think it seemed to be fine. And then, of course, if you guys don't know, Greg over at NyPrepper, he's on Twitter X. So we're always sharing stuff over there and going back and forth. So make sure you guys follow us, both of us, over on X. He's also on Patreon. And he's going to be, I think, going live on his channel here in just a little bit. I think he was planning on going live around 10 o'clock his time, or maybe 11. So with some follow-up things that we were discussing, and probably whatever updates there are in the news. So you can check him out over there on his channel and subscribe to him, and keep up with all the reports of military movements and things that are going on there. So, and then I think you had something else going. Oh, you have an app now. Do you have some kind of app that people can use? You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I have an app. It's underneath all my videos, the link to it. But if you go to Google Play and you just type in NyPrepper, one word, or NyPrepper Emergency Alerts, it's just an app that you can download to your phone, and there's different levels of alerts that you can set, so your phone will have like an alarm sound. So, if there's something crazy happening, like Trump is bombing Iran, I can send out an alert to everybody who has the app, and you'll get an alarm on your phone so you know what's going on. And you can set the alarm based on, whatever criteria you want. I have like 5 different severity levels of the alerts, so it's kind of like just like an alert type of thing, like an emergency alert system from me, basically. So.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, and you have a Google Plus, and I think like an Android phone or a Microsoft type system, you can get that. I'm guessing it's not available in the App Store, huh?
For Apple?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guys who built the Android version, they've been building the Apple one. It's taken them a whole month, and they're in the testing phase now. They have like a bunch of people that they're testing it with, so it should be available probably this month, but it's 100% free. There's no ads. No ads will play on your phone. I'm not going to install any spyware on your phone so I can track you or anything like that. It's just, it's totally free. It also allows me to send out notifications to my subscribers when I go live or when I post videos, because a lot of times YouTube doesn't share out the notifications for whatever reason. Either they're censoring or there's a bug or whatever. So this way I can definitively let people know, hey, I'm going live now, or hey, I just posted an update, and they don't have to like hunt around and look for it, Yeah. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. I know on my end, I'll keep an eye on that on the Google app. So all right. Well, thank you so much for being on here tonight. And we're definitely going to be planning the next time for have you come on and be a part of the channel. But I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight and have this conversation. So, all right. With that being said,
thanks
everyone.
for having me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. With that being said, everyone, thank you guys so much for being here. God bless you. Remember, we'll be on tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for Pastor Talk with myself and Pastor Danae. So make sure you guys come with your prayer requests and ready to have our Bible study with us tomorrow night. So with that being said, please remember, follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and over on X. And of course, follow Greg over on his channel. We have his links in the descriptions box below, so you can go and check him out over on his channel as well. That being said, everyone, have a great evening. God bless you, and we will see you guys on the next go around. Bye, everyone.